Welcome back to the Scarcity Trap, How Poverty Rewires the Mind from English Plus Podcast. So far on this journey, we've spent our time inside the mind. In episode 1, we shattered the myth of bad choices, revealing that scarcity imposes a heavy bandwidth tax on our cognitive resources. In episode 2, we walked through a day under the weight of that tax, experiencing the claustrophobia of tunneling, that intense, crisis-driven focus that makes it nearly impossible to see the bigger picture. We've explored the mechanics of a mind under siege. But the mind does not exist in a vacuum. It lives in a body, and it operates in a social world. The experience of poverty isn't just a private, internal cognitive struggle. It's a public performance played out on a stage where you are constantly being watched, judged, and compared. Today, our focus shifts from the cognitive to the emotional. We are moving from what scarcity does to the mind to what it does to the heart. We're going to talk about the invisible burdens of poverty, shame, stigma, and the profound, exhausting weight of constantly feeling like you are on the outside looking in. We're going to talk about the psychological impact of living under what I'm calling the weight of the gaze. I'm Danny, and this is a new episode from English Plus Podcast. Now let's first start by talking about the comparison machine. Humans are wired for comparison. It's one of our most fundamental social instincts. We don't really know how we're doing, if we're safe, successful, or valued in a vacuum. We figure it out by looking at other people. Our sense of well-being isn't absolute. It's relative. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you've been saving up for months, and you finally buy a new phone. You're thrilled. It's fast, the camera is great, and it feels like a huge upgrade. You experience a genuine spike in happiness. The next day, you meet a friend for coffee, and they pull out their brand new phone, a model that's one generation newer with a sleeker design and an even better camera. What happens to that feeling of happiness you had about your own phone? For most of us, it deflates. Well, just a little, let's say. Your phone hasn't changed. It's still the same great device it was yesterday. But its meaning has changed because the point of comparison has shifted. This feeling has a name, and it's called relative deprivation. It's the experience of being deprived of something not in an absolute sense, but relative to your peers. Now imagine that feeling isn't just a fleeting moment over coffee. Imagine it's the defining characteristic of your entire life. Poverty, especially in a wealthy society, is a constant grinding state of relative deprivation. In a world saturated with advertising and social media, you are relentlessly bombarded with images of what you don't have. It's not just that you can't afford a new phone. It's that you can't afford the clothes you see on TV, the vacations your coworkers post about, the cars your neighbors drive, the food you see on cooking shows. This constant comparison isn't just about things. It's about experiences. It's about security. It's about freedom. It's about the sense of ease and lack of worry that you see on the faces of people around you. Living in poverty means being an expert in the catalog of things you are excluded from. And this education in exclusion often starts at a very young age, in a place that's supposed to be the great equalizer, school. Let's talk next about the classroom and the caste system. Now let's tell a story about a boy. We'll call him Leo. Leo is 10 years old. He's bright, he's funny, and he loves school. But Leo's family is struggling. His mom works 2 jobs, and his dad's work is inconsistent. On most days, school is fine. Everyone wears the same uniform, and in the classroom, what matters is how quickly he can solve a math problem or how creative his story is. Then comes Spirit Day. It's a non-uniform day, a day when kids can wear their own clothes. For many kids, this is a day of fun and self-expression. For Leo, it's a day of intense anxiety. He stands in front of his small closet and there's nothing there that looks like what the other kids will wear. His jeans are a little too short, faded at the knees. His t-shirts are from a discount store, their logo's unfamiliar, and their fabric thin. He puts on the cleanest, best thing he has and walks to school with his stomach in knots. In the schoolyard, his fears are realized. The other kids are wearing trendy sneakers with logos he recognizes from commercials. They have hoodies with the names of popular brands. Well, no one says anything mean to him. They don't have to. The clothes themselves create an invisible caste system. The kids in the cool clothes clump together, talking about video games Leo has never played. Leo feels a hot flush of shame. He spends recess trying to make himself as small as possible, hoping no one's gaze lingers on his worn-out shoes. The comparisons don't stop there. There's the school book fair, where he watches his friends eagerly buy stacks of new books while he clutches the one crumb dollar bill his mom gave him, knowing it's not enough for anything. There's the chatter about the upcoming ski trip, an experience so far beyond his family's reality that it might as well be a trip to the moon. What is a child like Leo learning in these moments? He's learning more than just that his family has less money. He is internalizing a powerful and painful message about his own worth. He's learning that he is different. He is less than. The external reality of his family's finances is slowly but surely building an internal reality of shame. He is learning to see himself through the eyes of others, and what he sees is someone who doesn't quite belong. This is the weight of the gaze, and for a child, it can be crushing. And now let's talk about the stigma you can't take off. Now, as you grow up, this feeling doesn't go away. It just gets more complex. The childhood shame of not having the right clothes evolves into the adult stigma of poverty. For those of you who don't know what stigma is, a stigma is a mark of disgrace. It's a label that society applies to a group of people that sets them apart and devalues them. And in many cultures, poverty is a deeply stigmatizing condition. As we talked about in our first episode, it's often linked to a whole host of negative stereotypes: lazy, unintelligent, irresponsible, having poor character. People living in poverty are acutely aware of these stereotypes. They know how they are perceived. The gaze becomes the imagined or real judgment of everyone they interact with. It's the landlord who speaks to them with a condescending tone. It's the potential employer who glances at their address and makes an instant assumption. And perhaps nowhere is this felt more acutely than in the simple, everyday act of buying food. Now let's return to that scene from our first episode. The person in the grocery store line paying with food assistance vouchers or an EBT card. Think about the psychology of that moment. You've done your shopping, just like everyone else. But when it's your turn to pay, you have to perform an act that separates you. You pull out a different kind of card. The cashier might have to press a different button. Sometimes the transaction takes a moment longer. In that tiny pause, you can feel the eyes of the person behind you. You don't know what they're thinking, but the stigma primes you to expect the worst. Are they judging what's in your cart? Are they thinking their tax dollars are paying for your food? To cope, you develop defenses. You might try to be extra friendly to the cashier. You might avoid eye contact with anyone else. You might feel a surge of defiance, or you might feel a wave of shame that makes you want to disappear. Regardless, the experience is emotionally and cognitively taxing. You're not just buying groceries. You are managing a social threat. This constant management of stigma, this awareness of the gaze, is exhausting. It uses up that precious mental bandwidth we've been talking about. And over time, something dangerous can happen. The external stigma can become internalized shame. You start to believe the negative messages society is sending you. You start to see yourself through that judgmental gaze. Maybe I am a failure. Maybe this really is all my fault. That internalized shame is one of the most corrosive psychological burdens of poverty, poisoning a person's sense of self-worth and agency. And now let's talk about a body under attack. This constant emotional and social stress, the relative deprivation, the stigma, the shame, is not just in your head. Your body is keeping score. Our brains are designed to protect us from threats, and they don't distinguish particularly well between a physical threat and a social one. Being judged, excluded, or shamed can trigger the exact same biological stress response as facing a predator. This is the famous fight or flight response. When your brain perceives a threat, your adrenal glands pump up hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate increases, your blood pressure rises, and your senses sharpen. This is a brilliant system for surviving short-term emergencies. The problem is, for someone living in poverty, the threats are not short-term. The threat is the first of the month, every month. The threat is a sick child and no health insurance. The threat is the judgmental gaze in the grocery store every time you make a trip there. The threats are chronic. This means the fight or flight system can be perpetually activated. You are living in a state of chronic stress. This has devastating consequences for your health. A body flooded with cortisol day after day is a body under attack from its own defense system. Chronic stress weakens the immune system, making you more susceptible to illness. It contributes to high blood pressure, heart disease, and diabetes. And crucially, it damages the brain. Chronic high cortisol levels are toxic to the very parts of the brain that are essential for getting out of poverty. It impairs the prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of our executive functions, the very things we've been talking about, like planning, self-control, and decision-making. It also damages the hippocampus, which is critical for learning and memory. This creates one of the most vicious feedback loops imaginable. The stress of being poor damages the very cognitive tools you need to escape poverty. The weight of the gaze isn't just an emotional burden. It's a neurological one. It's a physiological trap. Well, this can lead to a state of profound despair, when every effort you make is met with another barrier, when the world seems to constantly remind you of your failure, when your own biology is working against you. It can feel like there's no way out. This brings us to a final dark corner of the psychology of poverty, a phenomenon known as learned helplessness. When your actions seem to have no effect on your outcomes, you may eventually learn to stop trying. It's not laziness. It's a logical, though tragic, conclusion based on a mountain of evidence that says the game is rigged. Well, my friends, we've now explored a trap that seems almost perfectly designed. It starts by taxing the finite bandwidth of the mind, forcing a state of perpetual crisis, and it compounds that cognitive burden with an emotional one, weighing on the soul with the crushing forces of shame, stigma, and social comparison. This isn't just a bleak picture. For many, it feels like a sealed room. But is it? Is the trap inescapable? In my research, digging through these often dark psychological landscapes, I started to find cracks of light. I found stories of people who, against all odds, did break free. I found programs that didn't just offer money, but seemed to restore a sense of dignity and hope. This led me to a new question, a more hopeful one. If poverty is a trap for the mind, what are the psychological tools for escape? What does it take to reclaim your bandwidth, to shed the weight of the gaze, and to rebuild a sense of your own power? Well, that's the question we will begin to answer in our next episode, as we shift from an analysis of the problem to a search for solutions. So join me next time as we explore the psychology of resilience. Thank you very much for listening to the episode today. Remember, if you want to support me and support English Plus Podcast, you can do that by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or on Patreon. You can find the links in the description of the episode. With that, we come to the end of our episode. Again, thank you very much for listening. Remember, never stop learning with English Plus Podcast. I'll see you next time.